Some major Bengals injury updates. This has serious implications for the game on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers. We're going to break down the injury report for both the Bengals and the Packers and why this is going to be an important game for the Bengals to get back on track, sitting at 2-3. The season is still very much alive, and they can get back on track starting on Sunday against Green Bay. Welcome to the jungle. This is Isaac Coffman with Bengals Digest. Happy to see all you Bengals fans. And if you want to get in on the discussion, make sure you are subscribed by smashing that subscribe button down below. We are on our way to 3,000 subscribers. We thank each one of you and appreciate each one of you. We enjoy hearing your feedback, your thoughts on the Bengals so far. The big news for this week was the trade involving Joe Flacco. So there's a lot of questions going into this game. Are the Bengals going to be able to get back on track? Get back into that win column. They are on a 3-game losing streak, sitting at 2-3. So we look at both sides. There are actually some injuries on both sides that could potentially play into this game on Sunday. It's going to be in Green Bay. It should be an exciting game, especially with a lot of questions. How is Joe Flacco going to perform with this offense? Coming in as that veteran, trying to make it more stable. Jake Browning had 3 games, and unfortunately for him, just could not produce in the way they were hoping for. So when it comes to this Sunday, there's some things to keep an eye on. The Bengals report, they are continuing to just get back on track, get back to where they need to be. But some names to keep an eye on. Dylan Fairchild was shown to be on the report due to his knee. He did not participate so far in practice. You have BJ Hill. He was more on a rest. Normally, a lot of times the veterans get a rest, but just something to keep an eye on. He did have an ankle as a injury report on there. So it could just be he was resting for the Veterans Day off. The big one to keep an eye on is going to be Shamar Stewart. He has been out the past few games, coming back from that ankle injury. If they can get him back, he's going to be a huge addition, one that they could really use when it comes to that pass rush against the Green Bay Packers. And getting to the Green Bay Packers, they have actually some injuries when it comes to that line. So something to keep an eye on as well. You have Trey Hendrickson, of course, for the Bengals, who has shown to be that solid, consistent pass rusher, not only just in the sacks, but also in the pressure rates. But when it comes to Green Bay, they are suffering injuries even on the offensive line. So they have currently a name that you want to keep an eye on is Rasheed Walker. He has a quad issue. He would be one that would be going up against Hendrickson. He has shown up on the injury report for the Packers. But one other name that has also shown up on the injury report is their kicker, Brandon McManus. So he kind of joked about it like it's going to be a major concern. That's been the reports. But still, if this game comes down to a kick and that injury actually plagues him a little bit, you never know. Again, the Bengals have got to go out there and they got to produce, right? They have shown in these past 3 games they're not the team that we thought they were. This team has a lot of talent, but they have been blown out. They've been just dominated. And to say they're going to go in there and they're going to have a close game with Green Bay, well, if you go by the past few games, that hasn't been the case. However, again, you have Joe Flacco coming in. Who knows? He might have that spark. He might be able to reignite. That's the hope, right? As a fan, we still have a lot of questions, more than answers at this point. Flacco came in on a plane this week and is named the starter this week with little practice. Could that mean that it's a home run? Well, again, he hasn't had much practice. These little things can add up, or they could be little things, just like this injury with Brandon McManus. He's playing it off like it's not a main concern. But you can play the what-if game, right? The Bengals in the last few games are showing they are not keeping these games close. But if they do, and it comes down to a kick and McManus misses, that is exactly how they lost against the Cleveland Browns, who, of course, Joe Flacco has come from. So It's interesting, though. Just something to keep an eye on. He has come out and said, again, that he normally kicks on Wednesdays and Fridays. He did not kick on Wednesday. So we'll wait and see if he still practices on Friday. The Packers have tried out a few kickers just as a backup, but something to keep an eye on. As little as that might seem, again, there's a lot of what ifs we can play with this, but if it comes down to a close game and that field goal, every point is going to matter. Maybe this is just a minor injury, and come game day, you're not even going to notice that he has an injury. Sometimes that happens. And that's the tone that you're kind of getting from McManus himself. But regardless, if this is a small detail, again, something to keep an eye on going into Sunday. Who knows? That could be something that makes a big difference. And speaking of differences, you have, of course, Joe Flacco, who the Bengals are hoping to make a difference. Jake Browning just did not produce at the level they were hoping for. I think it's universally at least agreed upon that a change needed to be had. It's simply put, maybe Joe Flacco isn't the choice that you were thinking. Maybe there's another name that you would have preferred, but you have to respect the Bengals for at least trying something different. 3 weeks, I think, is a lot more than a lot of teams would give a guy like Jake Browning, who just, simply put, struggled. Was turning the ball over, and if not turning the ball over, was not pushing the ball down the field with playmakers like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on your team. It just was not adding up. 3 weeks is enough to say, this isn't working. We need a change. And especially since the season is still alive, those 2 wins in the first 2 weeks are showing to be just a huge buffer, whatever you want to call it, a big padding of this season isn't over yet. If you have Joe Flacco actually come in and lead them to some at least decent wins, he doesn't need to go out there and win every single game. He doesn't need to get on this insane winning streak. You just need to stay in that playoff hunt. Right now, they are 1 game out of the wild card spot, sitting at 2-3. You're very much in this. With Joe Flacco, maybe, again, you're not going to go out there and just start going on a winning streak. But if you can stay in that race, keep up with the other teams that are also in the playoff hunt, that's all you can ask for. Joe Burrow is supposed to be out for 3 months. December is the earliest that he would be looking at coming back. Can Joe Flacco hold down the fort, so to say, until Joe Burrow can return? Again, a lot of questions. You can sit here and debate all day. What is going to be the result? And that's what makes this so fun, right? Debating about if a 40-year-old quarterback that was benched by the Cleveland Browns can come in and get a team that has struggled at the quarterback position. It makes for a fun storyline, if anything. I know I'll be watching and I'll be anticipating what kind of results the Bengals can get. There's a lot of questions, again, with that offensive line. Can they protect Flacco long enough? They were not showing that with Browning. You can make all the excuses you want with Browning of he was not getting the protection. I do feel that that was part of it, but at also times, Browning wasn't making those decisions. He wasn't making the right reads at the right time. And that's what makes the quarterback position so important, being able to make those decisions so fast and in the moment. Flacco's shown in the past he's been able to do it. So again, respect should go to the Bengals for at least trying something different, respecting, seeing that a change needed to occur. And this is what Zach Taylor had to say as well, just to kind of add to getting a veteran in. When they asked him about Joe Flacco coming in and being the starter this week, this is what Zach Taylor said. He says, I don't know him personally, only met him once before he came here, but he knows the game so well. Played against him, I don't know how many times, a lot of times, and so very comfortable with his style, concepts he's been good at. Things that fit us, that we do, a lot of the terminology, there's a bunch of carryover, more so than I would have anticipated. So feel like we can get him up to speed quickly. So there you go. he seems like a guy that could come in, and is he going to be lights out? Well, remains to be seen, right? I don't expect that. I don't expect him to come in and just start lighting them up. The offense is just going to take off. I don't see that happening. But can you get more stability? Can you get a guy that, again, is a veteran? He's been there before. He has that decision making. That's going to need to be fast. Again, going back to this offensive line, it's not going to be pretty. They're not going to give him much time. That's just being frank. Unless the offensive line turns a corner, they turn a page and are able to give Joe Flacco at least a second or two longer than they have. That would be monumental. Because just being frank, they have not been good. They have not given Jake Browning time. They weren't giving Joe Burrow time. So now you're counting on a 40-year-old quarterback that can make decisions quickly. That's what this move really was. So stay tuned. I think this is obviously the big thing that everybody's going to be watching, but for good reason. If Joe Flacco can bring some stability to that quarterback position, doesn't need to go out there and throw for 400 yards. He doesn't need to be the guy that's just going to light it up on the stat sheet. But he needs to not turn the ball over like Jake Browning was unfortunately doing in those games against Minnesota, against Detroit. That's what they're looking for. And I'll be frank, I'm expecting at least an interception. At least one. Joe Flacco has turned the ball over himself. But think about this too. Cleveland did not have the talent on offense, the wide receivers that the Bengals do. That's what's kind of exciting to watch. What can Joe Flacco do with this Bengals offense? Something exciting to look forward to. A lot of storylines to look forward to. The other big thing would be Shamar Stewart. If they can get him back, again, he's going to be a big addition to help put the pressure. Because whatever happens on offense, they're still going to have to limit or slow down that Green Bay offense. Having Shamar Stewart back, that's a huge add. He was starting to turn it on. Even though he's a rookie, he was showing flashes that first round pick. I think everybody could say that. He was getting the pressure on the other side with Hendrickson. It's a fun thought to see what those two can do. Getting pressure, because that's something that was lacking with this defense last year. So something to keep an eye on. Those are the big things I think is the Packers kicker, see if he's going to be fully healthy, if that does hinder him in some way if he does start. Of course, Joe Flacco and Shamar Stewart. Those are the kind of the storylines to look out for. But we want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Do you think Joe Flacco is going to contribute right away? Do you think these injuries could be the difference come Sunday against the Packers? Be sure to comment below, and if you have not already, smash that subscribe button to get in on the discussion and know when our new videos drop. So that's going to do it for now, guys. As we say, Hoo day.